Hey, I'm Child of Bones and I want to speak to you today about how we formulate and make our brews and the magical intentions that we put into our products. So I guess the first thing would be in the contrast of Child of Bones magical potions, as opposed to having an index or a recipe book of different ingredients that have got magical alignment. And I guess in my experience of being a witch, I used to make magical brews and sell them in New Zealand, and how I did it was just with the knowledge that I had at the time. And I believe that, you know, most of us do what we can and try and do a really good job of it. And basically what I had was loads of Scott Cunningham's books. God love him, because he was so good in his time, wasn't he not? He was such a great man, and he gave us all this information in these herbal little grimoires. And so we had like planetary alignments and symbols and so forth, and also what herbs and oils and resins were affiliated to certain gods. And that was a really pleasant time all those years ago when we had access to that. Certainly there was no Google searches or anything, so that was cool. And so what I did was I followed, you know, in a very structured way, and made sure that the gods, you know, for their own perfumes or power oils had, you know, what it was that I was told that they liked. And, you know, I think there's something sweet in that, and I also think that there can be power that can be conjured and put into that you can make recipes that are tried and tested and have magical results. Absolutely, I believe that. Now, the Child of Bones range that I've made, which I keep saying in these clips that are Deity inspired, was slightly different in their magical results, and I believe it's the process in which they're made, and I believe very much it's the information that I've gained over years and the knowledge through working with plant spirits intensely and with God forms, and basically what I've learned is just what I want to quickly let you know about today, about how we formed the Child of Bones potions. And so I guess one of the main, maybe the easiest way to explain it, certainly at the start, is that being a trained acupuncturist, there was some of my training was also based in Chinese herbalism, and the brews seem to have adopted a very Confucian ideal about organisation and politics, which is actually quite traditional in Chinese herbs, and how they actually formulate these great recipes that they've had around for thousands of years in herbal formulae. And so basically if we kind of take that as a base of how getting information from Deity about what they want in their brew and the ingredients, and applying this Confucian ideal of how you would actually formulate a political organisation to have harmony and great effect on the people. This is kind of what the basic formula that we followed. And so in the Child of Bones range, in the brews, in the potions, we have always selected what you call an emperor or a sovereign for the brew. So what that needs to be is, it needs to be a physical representation that is the closest, the strongest affiliation to the deity that this potion is, one, going to represent an anchor energy for or bridge to. So finding out those objects, sometimes they're herbs, sometimes they're fossilized animal parts, it could be anything. I have to say, I guess in a brief talk like this, let's just call it an object, because sometimes it's different things. But so it has to be a physical representation. I mean, this isn't an incantation, this isn't a hymn or a, you know, some kind of vocal cord harmonic singing. This has to represent physically the best that you can find or be inspired to find for this god form, or this plant spirit, or that's going to be represented. It's a bit difficult, obviously, talking about plant spirits, because obviously it's a no-brainer. It's going to be the plant. But if I just carry on, because of the obviously the other 14 energies in shoulder bones aren't necessarily representing a plant spirit. So we have this object. We have this physical representation, and it on itself could be a ritual item on your altar representing that god or alignment, but this is actually coming into this to create a weave, if you like, a weave to start. So it's going to hold this. So what we do is we find an object. That object then needs assistance. So then what we do is we search and we look and we trance and we meditate with the god, and we stay open for assistance on minister agents, is the English interpretation of this old Chinese formulae. So we're looking for ministers, and who the ministers tend to be, usually, certainly in my magical range, tend to be plants. And they can be power plants or master plants, master teacher plants, or they could be just generally a plant spirit, or a plant spirit under the domain of that god. So we find and we source and we trance and find out very specific information about what is going to be a minister agent to this object. Now, what we do there is, that isn't a textbook exercise. That takes a bit of work, because obviously what you also need to do is you need to journey to the plant. So the plant, every part of this brew, this formula, this recipe, absolutely has to have every energy specific and vibration signed up to it. So we may be informed by the god, but we're still having to go and do the work and actually form relationship with the plant and ease the plant in and see if the plant's got any resistance. Is the plant willing? Is all of the energy coming forth? Is only part? Do you use only the petals? Do you use the stem? Do you use the seeds? Are they mashed? Are they dried? You know, all these things, that's specific. And okay, so then we've got the minister, so that's going to assist this object, and then we have what would normally be termed an assistant herb to assist the greater picture of what we've already got, what we're already forming. And for me, I don't use assistant herbs necessarily. What I do is, this is where I bring in the salts. So the salts for me is the body, if you like. The assistance to the potion is the body of what it's going to sit in. And this is just as important to me. Every part of this puzzle is very important, but obviously what you're putting your potion into, it needs to hold, anchor, it needs to be compatible with the signature energy, and it obviously needs to contain all aspects. Now some parts of the magical collective, if you like, believe that salt cuts magic, so they would only use salt to actually dispel magic. They don't use salt in with plants, they won't use salt in with magic, because they would see it as cutting what was trying to build. That's not been my experience, and it's absolutely fine that everyone has their own thing. As long as it works for everyone, it doesn't really matter, does it? But so my shoulder bones potions are all based in very selective, specific salts, and sometimes it depends on what country they come from. It can be the colour inherent in the salt, because they're all natural, so sometimes I have to source different brands of salt for different colour, or different countries, or how they were sourced, and we go from there, basically. So it has to be, and of course some salt, depending on altitude where it's been, also we take that into consideration. And I know there's certainly one brew in particular where there was trance work to be done with the mountains near where it came. So it was about actually releasing, that was okay to release all of the power that was going to come in with the salt. So, you know, there's lots of fascinating, and I love it, specifics that we do in order to have this harmony. Because when you trance and you make magical brews, you can feel it. You can feel if there's something that's, you know, just holding back, or you know, that there's not this like this full impact. Because every time you add something to a magical potion, there should be this very clear, transparent sense of clarity about what's coming in. And you know, it can feel like maybe that it's not right, or you have to go and source a different salt, or maybe you need to go where the salt came in trance, and you need to see if there's anything else that's holding it. And anyway, these are the things that we do with our potions. And so the other thing is, so you've got that, and then we journey through it as a collective that's coming together. Of course, what this is becoming is it's forming its own relationship. So it's no longer separate objects that you can sense. Then it starts to form, just like a relationship in a couple or something. It starts to have its own signature energy. It's not finished yet, because what needs to also certainly, because I really believe in feeding gods, so it could just be my interpretation, but what I feel makes the brew quite complete is when I start actually wondering and trancing in it and asking the deity, where exactly now in this brew do we need to court the god? So this already matches the god's signature energy, if you like. It's deity aligned, everything's signed up in it. The deity can sit in it, imbue it. The deity can bridge to the deity, depending on, you know, who it is and what the magical working's for. But then we sit with it and we let it cook and bake in its own energy, and we call on the gods, and we sing the ikaros, we sing the gods' hymns, or vocal alignment of what it is that they believe will imbue this brew, their brew, with magical intent, and become a bridge to that god force. And so sometimes it's appropriate as well with some of my brews, not all of them, just some of them, depending on the god form, that we then actually trance again, this time more with the signature energy, with the brew that's forming. So with this beautiful energy that's becoming to life in its own right, we start to go into it and see what can we add without upsetting this that will feed the god. So we want to invite the god, we want the god to feel cherished in this energy that's already theirs, and we celebrate the god. So some of the brews also have that in, depends on the personality or the character, if you like, of the god form and their potion. And so pretty much I think that's explaining the work that goes into a Child of Bones potion. And I guess the other thing to mention really is then they sit and they bake, and sometimes, you know, I have to sing God songs through it, depending on the deity or what the deity may require. And then basically they're left to cook, and they cook for as long as they need in jars, you know, like away from the eyes of the living. And basically that's how we get our magical results, because that's the work that we put in, and that's how serious we take it really. And the other products that stem off the potions, as if you've seen any of the other videos, I talk about different god forms and what else I've made. And for example, the power oils has a different magical quality. I mean, obviously it's a distillation of the potion, because nothing I have really bridges better than a potion, because it's like, you know, that's not been distilled in any way. But having a power oil is an effective magical working in its own right, but I change it slightly, of course, because it's then an oil that you feed the god, and the body then changes, where before it was salt and held very strongly and anchored that and acted as a bridge, and then we go over and we have the power oil, and the power oil is, you know, as you can imagine, is very viscous and very fluid, and things can happen differently when you use different mediums in magic, and so we have its own quality. And with the balms we have an oil, you know, and we have beeswax obviously to set it, and you can use it, or you can use it on the dollies, and that in its own right has a slightly different vibration of using the power oil. But they're used differently obviously as well. Obvious is always your magical intent, and holding your magical intent when you do magic, and holding it in between the points that you're working magic. So you know, you do a spell on Tuesday, you hold your magical intent on Wednesday and Thursday, and then you might do another, you know, you might redo your ritual again on Friday or add to it, and you're holding your magical intent. You know, you're not going necessarily into magic and thinking that a sprinkling of this or that's going to sort it out. I mean, you know, maybe it will, but I just mean that I think what we mustn't ever lose is that we must always realise that we dominate our own fields, and magically the best thing we could do for ourselves is actually hold our own magical intent, and all else follows. And you know, we can have wonderful things that help us with magic and help us gain the clarity, and you know, we could use these potions that I'm talking about to bridge to a god form that we want to work with, and hope may bless us or imbue us with energy, and all that's a beautiful magical working obviously. And what we always need to remember is that, you know, it's up here, you know, up here is what sorts things out, and being clear and not eroding your magical work by negative self-talk as soon as you're finished and things like that. It's all really important. It's really important. Anyway, I hope you like that. Thanks for watching.